Let's build an extremely good crypto portfolio from the very ground up. I'm talking about all the things that I would personally do in building my own portfolio, but doing it on screen with you guys to help me. Now, I've got my own extremely promising picks I'm going to show you in this video, but the really beautiful thing I think about doing this as a series is getting you guys to help me pick out the projects as well and making a global informed decision. I think that's what crypto is all about, making governance proposals as a collective rather than individuals making the overall decisions themselves. Okay, so I want to take you through the process today from, again, what I would do starting fresh, and then by the end of this video we'll have hopefully picked our altcoins to my next video. If you leave your suggestions down below, we'll be able to start buying, dollar cost averaging, and doing the works. But let me know again, now if you're someone who is in the same position as this, right, has $5,000 or has a couple $1,000, $10,000, $100,000, you can literally copy and paste what I'm doing here and apply it to yourself, okay? Because again, the process here is the important part. Of course, it's going to go pretty hand in hand if we can build something together. Now, $5,000 for me is actually quite a lot because for those who know, I have my own crypto portfolio right now. This will be something we do together. And by, no stretch is $5,000, not a lot of money for me. It's still quite a lot of money. So we're going to make sure we play this methodically, carefully, and effectively. So the reason why I wanted to make this, and a couple of questions that popped up when I did suggest it on my community tab, which is, by the way, where you should go to because we'll keep up to date over there. I had a few people saying, Kyron, I think, $5,000 is a good starting point, but what about a $500 portfolio? Or what about, over here, a £100,000 portfolio? Guys, that's crazy. And I like the suggestions. I'm happy to make individual videos on what I would do in those situations, but the beautiful thing about it is you guys can simply just multiple or divide depending on how much capital you have to invest to begin with. If you have $10,000, you can just do exactly this, but double it, okay? So it all depends. If you have $500 divided by 10, so on and so forth, you just have less capital, essentially. So I had one really interesting comment over here from Mr. Tivis, which I decided to go ahead with, which is essentially integrating you guys into this process, because I think that's pretty important, right? Now, one thing that stuck out to me, what he said over here, was that I should do this as a giveaway. So I'm very much considering at the end of this series to give this portfolio away to one of you guys who is interacting with me from the get-go, from right now, and who has effectively played a part in building this portfolio and guiding where it sort of ends up, essentially, okay? So let's begin now with the portfolio itself. What would I do if I started from scratch? Okay, so the first thing I would do, of course, is figure out what my risk tolerance is. Now, you guys can definitely correct me down below. Let me know what you want to buy. It all depends on you as well, but this is what I am suggesting. Everything we're doing in this series is going to be just merely a suggestion. Final decision is made down below. So I am proposing we put $2,500 into medium risk projects, $2,000 into low risk projects, and holding $500 cash right now. We're going to be buying micro caps with this, but I just want to hold off just for now. We're going to touch on more soon, okay? So my goal is to imagine if this 5K was all that I had to invest. So what would I think? Well, 2025, again, as I always say, is merely a stepping stone. 2030 plus is where we get our financial freedom. So 5K mightn't be much compared to most people, but it's most definitely enough, if done correctly, to transform your life by 2030, okay? And it depends on your situation. Of course, 5K turning into, a couple $100,000 can definitely change your life, but we want more than a couple $100,000, let's face it, right? So here's some of the things we have to consider. One, I am looking to take a 100% risk bet on this because losing $5,000 at 24 years old isn't going to kill me. And number two, my return on investment goals don't need to be as high as I'm only looking to make enough money to take advantage in 2030 plus. So here's what we're dealing with, okay? These are my risk categories. We have low risk, medium reward, we have medium risk, high reward, and we have high risk, extremely high reward. Now, these are the projects I am suggesting because these are the market caps between where we want to be buying, okay, for this risk tolerance levels, of course. So in the high end, 1 billion to 25 billion, medium. So this is projects ranging from 100 million to 1 billion, and higher risk, 1 million to 100 million. So these are the projects, again, I've suggested that I would personally want to buy. I'm going to tell you the ones I'm actually wanting to buy in a second. Again, you can most definitely confirm or refute that, but take a good long look at this and let me know what you guys think down below, if we should add any to this list, and then come back to ask the community later on. The next thing I would do is ask myself, am I going to be dollar cost averaging? Very important to dollar cost average. Now, I have an entire Excel spreadsheet that goes over this, okay? I created this myself. It's my budgeting tool, all right? And this will pretty much punch all your expenses and all your income into a weekly dollar cost average total at the very bottom, so you know exactly how much you can invest into crypto. But okay, from here, let's continue, right? So I think it's a good idea to DCA, of course. However, we aren't going to be following any DCA schedules. I see a lot of people saying, I'm going to invest $100 every Friday at 12 p.m. I don't care if the prices are up, down, left, or right. I don't like that. I've done that before. It hasn't worked out well, simply because you buy on the green, next day it tanks, and because you're just like, I'm going to just continue to buy on this day no matter what, it gets you in a bit of strife. If you just add a little bit of critical thinking to that process, you come out a lot better off, okay? So what we're doing here is buying in these three scenarios. One, if our entry level is met, so we're going to assess weekly, that'll make more sense momentarily. Number two, we're going to buy when the market or Bitcoin is down 10% on the weekly, and also buy when our altcoin is down 10% weekly. Nevertheless, we always revert back to this up here. We're going to assess our projects daily and actually weekly to see which ones are down the most. So let's decide, for example, we have the $100. Let's say it's Monday and we're getting paid. Okay, we have $100 to spend. Well, I'm proposing we do something that I do personally, okay, which is split that instantly. 20% for a black swan. That's going to only be used for a massive dip, for example, or dips. Number two is take the 80% or the $80 and buy, again, in this situation. Only in this situation, if, for example, there is not a situation for us to buy or dollar cost average any altcoins for any reason, we simply top the entire $100 into the cash reserves. Now, whether we pull that money out later on and invest in one of those projects on a dip, I don't know. The beautiful thing about choosing very small amount of projects is we can top those projects up in a very short amount of time. For example, I'll show you what I'm speaking about in a second here, because if you have 20 projects, right, and your goal is to have $1,000 invested in each, for example, and you start off with $500 in each, it's going to take you, if you DCA $80 a week, a long time to get all those up to $1,000 each. It might take you, 4 or 5 months, if not longer. If you choose less projects, okay, what that essentially does for you is, you might, in this case, but I'm going to propose in a second, is invest over a 6-week period and you have all your targets hit. So what does that mean? Well, you can afford to, on the days or on the weeks where, it's best if you just put all that $100 or all that DCA cash into a side, in this case, reserves, you don't have to pull it out again, which is good because you'll build up those reserves and that money will most definitely make you tenfold in a situation like a Black Swan event. Allow me to briefly interrupt this program with an announcement from today's video sponsor, which is Wall Street Memes. Guys, Wall Street Memes has only 3 days left until its ICO phase is completed, and then 4 days until it's listed on a Tier 1 exchange. As you can see from the website here, there's not a lot of time left. You guys can actually participate in the ICO if you were interested by clicking the link in the description. That'll bring you up to this page here, plus you'll be supporting the channel. Now, what's really interesting about this is, again, a Tier 1 exchange. We're talking about a name all of us know. We don't actually know what it exactly will be just yet. That's the really exciting part. Now, the maths I've done on this coin from the previous video, it'll launch at, give or take, around $60 million. Now, they do plan, as you can see from the roadmap down here, to aim for $1 billion market capitalization. And with this actual project being around for many, many years and actually already having its own very successful NFT collection with over 180 ETH, 539,000 followers over on Instagram, and 277,000 followers on Twitter. Suffice to say, there is a little bit of demand behind this project. Now, if you did want to enter again, you can actually participate in a limited time airdrop. There is 70 days left. 5 people will be getting $10,000 each. And all you have to do is go ahead and follow the links on the website. Thank you to WSM for sponsoring today's video. And again, guys, if you did want to participate, do it at your own discretion and use the link down below. With that being said, let's get back into it. So the next thing we have to observe here is, of course, once we've figured out our own personal things, all right, well, what projects are we going to buy? Now, this comes into a research. This is nothing more, nothing less than a research. Now, these are the 4 or 5 things, rather, that I propose as the most important for 2025. Speculation-based environment. We aren't looking to tweak this and tweak that, and is this speaking from the tokenomics standpoint, is the burn rate eclipsing the inflation rate, and what point does that do that? And we're not being too technical with it right now. We just need to find where the dumb money will flow and front run that. So that's kind of how I've set it up this way. I've made multiple videos explaining how this exactly works. Narrative first, meme, popularity, supply, and the team. You guys are going to have access to this document, so please go through and read it. If you haven't seen any of my videos, you should really do so. You're gonna learn a lot. So what we're doing here is, again, taking those 3 risk profiles: low risk, medium reward, medium risk, high reward, and high risk, extremely high reward, and then picking the projects out of it. Again, nothing more, nothing less than my personal preferences here. We have a few things we can do. Okay, so because we have $2,000, $2,500, and $500, we can break that up into multiple different ways. These are the such ways. Okay, so for the first one, we can, divide that into 2 ways. So $1,000 into 2 different projects. We can divide that into 3, so $666 into 3 projects, or we can take that $2,000 and buy 4 projects for $500 each. So on and so forth with the same risk categories over here. $500, you can break that into these ways. Essentially, I wouldn't want to go any more or any less than what we've got here. So I wouldn't want to put $2,500 or $2,000 over here for this into 1. I wouldn't want to do that. Likewise, over here, I wouldn't want to put $100 into 5 projects. That's just stupid in my opinion. Okay, you spread yourself too thin. And also, you have to remember, we need to research these projects 10 minutes at least per day in the bull run. So with that considered, here's what I'm proposing. I'm proposing for the first category here, 3 projects at $666. Second category, 3 projects at $833. And over here, I'm proposing 2 projects at $250. That comes to 8 altcoins, which means in the bull market, when it comes time to research, we're spending 80 minutes per day across all these projects. Yes, that's right, almost an hour and a half per day. That's a lot of time just for 8 projects. You have to factor this in, because if you don't do your research, you will get screwed over. I can almost guarantee you that, okay? But one other thing we have to consider as well that many people don't think of is topping this up. Now, again, I have personal goals. $1,000 in each project is where I want my minimums to be. We can continue to top those projects up overall, but my overall DCA minimum per project is $1,000. So considering we're technically investing $80, minus the cash reserves every week, it'll take us about 4 weeks to top up every single one of each of these 3 projects, okay? So, if, for example, we pick 2, again, it would only take us 8 weeks. Again, 3, you're multiplying the 4 weeks it takes to top up each individual project to $1,000. So again, that's 4 by 3, 12, so 12 weeks, okay? Same thing for all of these, except over here, of course, for the medium risk projects, well, because we're investing more, okay, 833, we only have to put in 160, so that's 2 weeks each. So that's, 6 weeks. So in reality, it's about 18 weeks worth of DCA that we're having to put in here to bring all these projects up. And that's a little over 4 months. So with that being said, please let me know what you guys want instead. Maybe some of you suggesting, smaller or larger. I don't care what it is. I want to hear your suggestions down below. We'll bring it back to the community. And of course, we will see which is ultimately better. And it might be a good exercise for all of us to compare the pair. All right. But if we come down here, this is to put things into perspective for you. Minimum ROI expectations for each of these if we follow this strict schedule and we don't DCA, okay, so we're only investing the $5,000, we would ideally get at our expectations of low risk 10x, medium risk 15x, and high risk 20x minimum, remember that, we get about $67,000, which is actually quite impressive. But if we DCA, over the 4.5 months, it'll actually be more than this. Ignore that. We'll get about $85,000, okay? But if we DCA, what happens is if we spend $1,760, averaging every single week or scattered weeks, over 4.5 months, it comes to $85,000. So it's a pretty big increase when you think about it, almost $20,000 more for only putting in $1,760, all right? So pretty impressive sort of stuff, but that's to give you guys some indication of why dollar cost averaging is quite important. It's gonna fluctuate, of course, depending on when you're buying, so on and so forth, but we're not gonna worry about the nitty-gritty stuff just yet. So from there, okay, we have to actually pick our project. So I'm proposing for the top section, all right, low risk, medium reward, Hedera, Quant, Mina. That's my picks. Medium risk, XTC, Mina, and Aleph AZERO, and low risk, Energy Web and Morpheus network. In my opinion, projects that if the 2025 bull run was to go kaput, nothing happens, let's just say the world goes to shit, and we're left with a whole bunch of projects. We've put all this money in. These are the projects I think will perform well in the long term regardless, okay? We don't want to be stuck with shit coins when frameworks come in and our money is literally evaporated in front of our eyes. So I want you guys to pick again. It doesn't have to be from this list like I've picked over here. You can obviously suggest your own altcoins, which we can all talk about together. But I guess these are my picks because we'll see in a second, we have to also pick altcoins that will meet our expected ROI. So over here, you guys saw, talking about minimum 10x, 15x and a 20x for these different categories. You don't want to be picking a project like, for example, XRP at a higher risk, betting a 20x, it's just not going to happen or highly unlikely. So one of the things I want to talk about very briefly here is factoring in tax ahead of time. We want to negate capital gains tax, which is super important, okay? Because capital gains tax, now I've made a whole video on this already, I've actually spelled this out, but if you can have a look down here, if this exact same situation played out where someone, for example, both people, bought BTC, but person A decided to sell their BTC within a 12-month period and profited $1 million versus someone who sold their 1 million BTC or 1 million worth of BTC after 12 months, you get a 41% difference in take-home capital. So this person was subject to capital gains tax, which means they were taxed on all of that at the highest tax bracket or most of it, which means they take home $500,000 versus this person over here who takes home $750,000. So it's very important we recognize this when we are deciding to buy into our projects. And I personally will be doing this. Now, this won't be happening for the next year and a half. So we have some time in this. If you don't know what capital gains tax is, you can decide to read up on this yourself and watch my video. I might leave the link down below. All right. So the next thing we do is locate price predictions to find entry levels and rough exit prices. So remember earlier, before how I mentioned, there's no point in you buying a project that isn't going to hit a certain price point because you might have, let's just say, a 20x overall expectation, okay? And maybe the projects you buy can only realistically hit a 10x, XRP, Ethereum, Bitcoin. You don't want to do that. You got to work within your risk and also within your expected return on investment guidelines. So this is an example I've recently done a video with Hedera HBAR, and as you can see here, what we simply do is take a rough price prediction, very rough price prediction based on things like market dominance, and then we'll work back from the current price to figure out how many multiples that might be and whether or not it's a good purchase at this current price. If it is, start dollar cost averaging at that price. It hits your expected targets, any lower, better. If it doesn't, if you're like, oh no, I don't want a 9x from HBAR minimal, I want at least a 15x. Well, you have to wait. Either bring your, entry level down to maybe 3.5 cents for HBAR or find a new project. You might love HBAR, don't be married to HBAR, right? This all depends on, of course, market dominance. It's all based on market dominance, but it's the easiest way to predict price in my opinion. And it does factor in, or at least you need to factor in a few more variables here. But again, most importantly, if the altcoins we've chosen do not meet our requirements for ROI, choose another. There's no point buying XRP if you want a minimum 20x. You guys know my thesis. Again, if we're building this portfolio kind of based on me, I'm using 2025 as a stepping stone, not the be all and end all, which means we don't have to look for 100x returns. We can look for 10, 15, 20x returns on those selected categories, okay? And lastly, begin buying. So what I've actually done is got a portfolio over here ready to go for you guys. Now, of course, I've got no altcoins. This isn't me having transferred money into CoinMarketCap. This will be kind of where we take things from here, visualize it all, and we can all track it, of course. So now what I mentioned here is it's not a good idea if we get all this capital and we decide to just throw it into projects at these prices. We get $666 and we just throw it into HBAR. Again, we have to make sure that we are happy with their entry levels, and if we are, we buy. So what I plan to do next, once you guys do a few things for me. One, confirm that we're happy to allocate this amount of money into these risk categories. Number two, if you're happy with me picking these altcoins, and then from there, we can, on the next video, go ahead and plot when we should be buying based on our ROI expectations. And if it's met, we will just instantly buy in. Why the hell not? So with that being said, guys, thanks so much. I really look forward to building this portfolio out with all of you. It's going to be a fun ride. And remember, one lucky person may potentially get this portfolio in 2025, considering they do a fair bit of input, which is what I'm looking for. All right. Take good care, guys. Talk to you soon. Bye.